Welcome to Loop Caribbean. My name is Alric Lindsay. Today we're joined by Mr. Saul de Vries from the Embassy of the Republic of Philippines in Washington, D.C., Miss May Codilla, and we have a representative here from the Cayman Bayanihan Filipino Community.
Yes, sir.
So it's a mouthful.
Yeah, it is.
So let's start with you, Mr. de Vries. Could you give us a little of the background of what your role is at the embassy in Washington?
Thank you, Ulrich. Yes, of course, I'm Saul de Vries. I'm the Attaché of the Philippine Embassy in Washington, D.C. Basically, I represent the Department of Migrant Workers in the Philippine Embassy, and it's the Department of Migrant Workers is the agency within the executive branch of the Philippine government that deals with the overseas employment of Filipino workers. So we have an office in the Philippine Embassy called the Migrant Workers Office. It is the overseas operating arm of the Department of Migrant Workers. We implement policies, programs developed by the Department of Migrant Workers in the Philippines for our various clients. Our various clients are, of course, the overseas Filipino workers themselves, the employers, and of course the recruitment agencies. So we deal with them. We do handle cases, labor-related cases of Filipino workers. We vet the employment offers to our overseas Filipino workers by employers wanting to hire them. We also vet recruitment agencies that want to do recruitment for foreign employers, uh, on behalf of the foreign employers to hire Filipino workers. So we make sure that in our vetting process, we make sure that our the migrant rights of our workers are actually protected. So basically, our role is to make sure that those who are hiring Filipino workers are legitimate, and those workers being hired are given proper protection.
Does the embassy in Washington focus just in the Caribbean, or what areas does the embassy focus on?
Well, we're the only migrant workers office in the East Coast of the United States, so we handle we cover the East Coast of the United States and the Midwest, as well as the entire Caribbean region. We also handle or we also cover workers from Central America and South America. So that's how big our coverage is.
How does Overseas Workers Welfare Association fit in?
Our agency, the Overseas Workers Welfare Administration, is an attached agency to the Department of Migrant Workers. It also has an overseas arm, but not in all countries. We are in countries where there is a high concentration of overseas Filipino workers. So that's what we call it OWA Overseas Post, and we are under the Migrant Workers Office. So our agency is tasked to protect the interests as well as promote the welfare of our overseas Filipino workers and also their families whom they have left behind in the Philippines. So our programs focus on welfare. We have educational and training benefits, especially for the dependents of our overseas Filipino workers, social protection benefits. We also have this very significant program of the government for our overseas Filipino workers, which is the reintegration program. We provide support and intervention that would be necessary for overseas Filipino workers when the time comes that they will eventually reintegrate or return to our country, because we always consider that overseas employment is just temporary. So they need to prepare when they go back home that they still have a source of income. And that's one of the activities that we do here overseas. So the programs that we do overseas or on site for our OFWs are reintegration preparedness program, welfare assistance in terms of necessary or appropriate assistance provided to our overseas Filipino workers who are who are in crisis situations or who have problems, just like what the labor attaché mentioned, labor-related problems, or who encountered physical or health problems. So we also extend appropriate assistance, and we also do this what we call community outreach. That's what we're doing now, and membership promotion. So there are many programs for our overseas Filipino workers as well as their families in the Philippines.
In terms of what the Filipino Community Association in Cayman is doing, how do you fit in with the work that the embassy is doing?
Yeah, so Cayman Bayanihan Filipino Community's main vision is to uplift the lives of every overseas Filipino workers in the Cayman Islands. And we're doing this through the Cayman equivalent, which is the Cayman Kind. So we connected with them ever since we started. And definitely they will be a great help for all the overseas Filipino workers here in Cayman, because they deal with all of the welfares and the needs of our fellow Filipinos here in the Cayman Islands.
Before their arrival, a survey was done to gather information on the concerns of Filipino workers. What were the results of that survey? What sort of concerns were raised? What kind of issues did the Filipino community want to bring to your attention?
Well, basically, if I'm not mistaken, what they did was to survey the actual needs of the Filipino workers here in Cayman Island from the different agencies, from the different government agencies in the Philippines. Because in our meetings with them, we told them that we will be bringing the services, virtually, services of certain government agencies that have dealings with overseas Filipino workers, like Social Security System, the PhilHealth, what else, Pag-ibig, and overseas Filipino banks. So we asked them if the Filipino workers here would have needs from these government institutions. So they did a survey, and I think the survey yielded some maybe.
What were the issues raised in the survey?
Definitely the major needs right now, because it's been a while they were not here. The major part was actually the updating of their employment contract that needs to be verified by them, that is being created by their employer here in Grand Cayman. That's the number one, actually. Second to that is the OWA, because Filipinos needs to update their membership every 2 years, and it's been more than 2 years now that they're not here. So those are the two major needs of the overseas Filipino workers here in Grand Cayman, because with those intact, their protection is, I'm not saying 100%, but they're more confident that they can go home and be back here, because without the verified documents from the Overseas Welfare Office, they will not have any exit clearance from the Philippines. When a worker goes to the Philippines, they need to be cleared to exit by the power of the verified contracts. And then third to that is the social security issues, because the Philippines have a social security system that we have there, and a lot of them went to attend the virtual meetings, and they're still requesting more. So in the future, we'll be having some more of that as well.
So beyond the survey, beyond virtual meetings, how did you engage members of the Filipino community in Cayman?
Well, of course, through the Bayanihan community. I actually wanted to expound on your question earlier about the relationship of the Bayanihan community with our office. Actually, as I mentioned earlier, we have a huge jurisdiction, and there's no way for us to engage every Filipino worker under our jurisdiction. So definitely, we would need conduits. We need the help of organized Filipino communities in the various jurisdictions that we cover. And of course, Cayman Bayanihan Filipino Community is one of them. We engage Filipino workers through these organized groups because they are actually our first responders, and we can label them as our first responders when it comes to issues affecting Filipino workers. We're physically far from these workers. They cannot reach us that easy, you know. If something happens to them, their default would be to go to their organization, and that organization would link them to us. That is our relationship, and we're really very thankful to these organized groups, to these organized Filipino communities. Without them, we'll not be able to really reach all those workers requesting our assistance. It's really humanly impossible for us. So we're really truly grateful to these community organizations.
So your direct contact is with the association. So how many people would you say you contacted or liaised with you in the community?
Well, under our Facebook group, we are more than 4,000 right now. Because not all Filipinos here in Cayman is having or using Facebook. That's how we try to improve the coverage. And they said, I think from the recent survey, we have about 5,000 Filipinos here in Cayman. But of course, we have some membership baseline as well and volunteers that we regularly meet. So then we have regular meetings, like almost every week we have a meeting. So we connect with them, and then if there's a problem arises, we directly contact Ms. May and have it.
In terms of issues that you see in other countries, compared to Cayman and what he has shared, are there any issues unique to Cayman that you haven't seen anywhere else?
Not really. I wouldn't say that there are issues that it's only unique for Cayman. I guess I would say that issues is common among Caribbean islands. And I have noticed for one recently that among the Caribbean islands, issues would be involving OFWs in critical illness, when an OFW dies, and they need repatriation assistance, something like that. And also, there might be contract-related or labor-related problems and issues, and that's why it's the Filipino community who partners with us whenever there are issues that or problems that our Filipino workers would encounter in the island. They would refer it to us, and they would also assist us where to go or where to bring these issues with the appropriate government agencies in the country or the island.
So one of the things that you might learn in Cayman is that when workers come here, sometimes they don't know the law. They don't know that they should get a job description within a certain amount of days of being hired. And sometimes they don't get paid a pension, they don't get paid health insurance. So we've seen in the community, or in the courts as well, how matters taken seriously by the courts. Have you experienced that issue here where Filipino workers are not getting paid on time, or don't have a written contract, or don't have a job description, or not getting pension payments, or not getting health insurance?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, we receive a lot of issues like that, and we're trying our best to do something about it. With our partnership with our government in Washington, we somehow help them cross that problem along the way, and we also have some plans in the future, still in the drawing board. That every time there's a new overseas Filipino workers coming here to Grand Cayman, we will have a post-arrival orientation seminar is PAOS. So they will attend that meeting virtually, even though they're in the States, and we will have some person here that can help us as well, so that they could understand a little bit. Maybe we cannot cover everything on Cayman, but at least the basic things that they need to know when they're here in Cayman. What are your basic rights? What are your basic things that you need to do, and those things that you should not do? So those are the things that we're planning, but it's still on the drawing board. Maybe we'll have a meeting probably in the next few months.
If I may add, normally the issues that you mentioned are encountered by those who came here without going through the usual regular process. No? These are the workers that did not go through the vetting process of our office, meaning those who came here through referrals of family members, friends, and other individuals, without their contract being scrutinized by our office. So they came here as probably tourists, no? not as really work permit holders. So they are more vulnerable to issues that you mentioned because their papers were not really vetted by our office.
Would that include the workers that go through Dubai? Because some workers
Yes, exactly.
go to Dubai first
Right,
and then
exactly.
come to the Cayman.
So there's no way for us to capture these workers because at least if they come from the Philippines, our immigration officer there could bar them from taking their flight. No, if they are suspected of going to Cayman Island without the required documentation. But if they come from third country, from Dubai or from other countries in the Middle East, then of course there's no Filipino immigration officer at the airports there, so they can freely come to Cayman.
If I may add on that, so if a Filipino comes from a different country other than the Philippines, the only thing they need to show in the airport is just the approved work permit.
Okay.
So they won't pass any Philippine government because before you exit Philippines, they will undergo a PDOS. They call PDOS. It's a pre-departure orientation seminar. So all of the Filipinos that exit the Philippines need to pass by the government, and then they will have to, the contract that they have here in Cayman, it needs to be verified by Washington because we're under Washington here. That's why it takes time for them to really come here in the proper route, because there will be a lot of evaluation before they come here. Unlike those people coming from different countries, the only thing they need here, they will just show it in the immigration here in Cayman. I have an approved work permit.
So would you say that the people that come here from a third country, do they have less protections available to them?
Yes, of course, I can say that. I think it's safe to say that these are more vulnerable workers because, as I mentioned, they did not go through the vetting process of the Philippine government.
So in what ways would you say they're vulnerable?
Well, since we did not see their contract, so they can be asked to sign contracts that do not meet the Philippine labor standards or the Cayman labor standards. There's no way for us to know that because we have not seen their contract.
So you really act as an instrument to make sure that everything is in place for an overseas Filipino worker, wherever they end up outside the Philippines. And if someone goes through a third country, they are sort of taking a risk that someone hasn't double-checked their documents for them, someone hasn't ensured that the documents comply with the law or other standards. Locally, we have this issue of minimum wage at the moment. That's a discussion that's ongoing. How will you address that? Will you address that through that association, or will the embassy sort of address that directly?
Well, on our part, I was interviewed by someone already on minimum wage, so I shared my thing there with regards to me being one of us, number one, as an employer, and number two, as an employee as well. So I shared my understanding on it and what's going to be the effect on my part as an employer. At the same time, as part of us being an employee. And then I also gave them some volunteers to be interviewed in different sectors I gave them contact persons for domestic helpers. I also gave them contacts for security guards. I also gave them contacts to different even in the hospitality area. So that's what we did in the communities, to gather people that they can reach out to interview, so that we can at least have an input in the upcoming talk about the minimum wage.
So
yeah.
the minimum wage advisory committee is currently meeting in different districts. So it would be good if your association attended. So not just yourself as an individual, but the association attends to let the committee know what the issues are, because it's important to provide feedback in the process. Otherwise, when the final decision is made, your input is not there. That's why it's so important to be involved at every step of the process. Do you think a wide number of Filipinos will be impacted by the change in the minimum wage?
Yeah, I am sure. Yeah, I think it will. In many ways, in many ways. Remember, there are a lot of Filipinos here who work as a minimum wage here, especially in the what do you call it, restaurant areas. There's a lot of Filipinos affected there. There are also some workers in the security area that I was told how much they are being paid. So I asked them, I said, how do you pay your rent? How do you pay your rent? I said, I just can't imagine that. I just heard it recently, actually. I'm not aware of it. But on the side of the employer, because I'm an employer as well, I said, I think it's best that they need to really review it, because it's a either or. I mean, it can affect the employer at the same time the employee. So on the side of the employer, myself, I told them that I need to hire quality people so that I can pay them more than what they're earning, and they can live good here in Grand Cayman. That's it. Yeah. Because it's the rent here, the cost of living here is so high right now.
I know that we have Filipinos in the financial services industry as well.
Yeah.
Is your association in contact with them as well?
Yes. A lot of them, yeah.
Do you think there are any particular policy changes that are needed, or any legal changes to the Labor Act that would be beneficial to low-income workers?
As far as I see, and as far as the people are saying to me, most of these low-income earners, they're trying to survive only by, renting room with, right? I mean, more than 2 people in a room.
Yeah.
Just to pay $500 a month room, they have to divide it by 3 so that they could survive, at least staying in a bed. So, I mean, and then they have to send money back home for their families so that the children can afford to school in a good school in the Philippines, so that they will have a bright future. So, it's a struggle for all these low-income earners, actually. Very struggling. And then, added to that is, of course, the culture of Filipinos. I mean, these low-income earners are normally, we call masa, or the regular Filipinos, that are not really that talking. They don't want to talk anything that will harm their employment status. They don't want to say anything that would impact their employers. These are the nature of Filipinos. They just want to continue working. As long as they're earning, they can stay in a small room, they can eat, they can send a little bit of money back home, they're fine.
But this is why it's so important to have the embassy involved in the contracts as well, right?
Yeah.
To give them more security.
Yeah.
So the people who aren't saying anything, is it because of a cultural reason, or is it because they didn't register?
I don't know. I'm not sure about that, but that's what I think. That's just my personal opinion, that most low-income earning Filipinos, they're not that, what do you call this? Eagerness to talk about it. They just stay quiet, and then they're not going to say anything because it can affect their employment. That's what they feel. Yeah.
So while you may feel that this is a unique thing to the Filipino community, this happens in the Latino community. It happens in other communities here, because when people come here, what locals see as a low wage is actually an improvement for other people coming from other countries. And so some people feel so grateful to have the opportunity to send more money home and to help their family, to buy a property, to start a business, that they sometimes don't complain. But I think that we need to build a system where people have confidence that someone is looking out for them, which is what Labor Attaché is doing, along with Ms. Codilla. So I think it's critical that perhaps your association do more outreach to ensure that everyone understands, rather than live in fear about saying something and get into trouble.
Yeah.
So more outreach to let them know that you're here to help them, right? So regarding how people can contact you in the Filipino community after you leave, some people may have missed the seminar, may have missed a speech. Would they go directly through the association, or they contact you directly?
Yes, of course, they can either go directly to us or through the community. Our contact details are posted on Facebook. They can email us, they can call us, they can follow our Facebook, or they can air their concerns to the community.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for sharing this valuable information, all information about the embassy, how you're helping your workers here, and how you have this partnership here with a local association. And I wish you all the success.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you.